looking around, I'm guessing most of us are here, and so it is 10:05 a.m. I would like to call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So that we don't have too much interference, I see most of you are muted, which is terrific. Just try to keep muted if you're not actually speaking. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a wonderful snow. Yeah, how fun is this? Charlie, if you would be good enough to do roll call.
Okay, fine. Leslie, you're there. Carl Kilduff from Clinton?
Here.
There. Okay, welcome to the meeting in the club. Angus?
Yep.
Peter?
Here.
Joan?
Here.
Susan?
Here.
Old Lyme, nobody? Myself and Noel?
Here.
Okay.
Okay, so the only one,
We have a quorum, obviously, Leslie.
fine, thank you, Charlie. And Joe informs me that we still don't actually have an official appointed person from Old Lyme yet. So they're just, again, not being represented, but they're aware of that. So what can we do? I would like to, before we get involved with the regional bus study, which is the next agenda item, I would like to offer anyone who's interested the opportunity to move the agenda around a little bit so that we don't lose people. I know Joan and Peter possibly have conflicts. So Joe, could you just take down the roll call for a minute so we can all see each other? Thank you. Does anybody want to move to have a section of the agenda moved up? Joan?
The legislative committee report.
Okay, so we would like to move the legislative committee report. I'm suggesting after visitors' comments so that we finish the regional bus study. Was that, is there a motion? Okay, fine. Second,
Who made that motion?
discussion. Susan made the motion.
And who seconded it?
I did.
Charlie.
Thank you.
Okay, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. If you don't want to unmute, just put your little hand up. Very good. Are there any other agenda items which people feel need to be moved up? No? Okay, good. Thank you. Let's move along then with the agenda. And let's go, first of all, I'm sorry, excuse me. Carl, welcome to our board meeting. Carl Kilduff is from Clinton. Did you want to say anything about yourself?
Not much. I'm town manager under the new form of government and have more than 20 years experience working at the local government level and 4 years with the state working as the executive director of the Connecticut House and Finance Authority.
Well, welcome. You'll get to know us pretty soon without taking the time to go around the table, but we'll assume that we're wonderful people. You'll be fine. Okay. Now, the regional bus study. Ann, are you presenting that on behalf of the engineers?
Yes,
Todd?
I am. Yep. I don't know, Joe, Sam, you want to say anything or you want me to jump right in?
Just at long last, this project is wrapping up. So we're very happy to see the conclusion and the final reports. It's been a really great process. I want to thank Anne for her leadership and stepping in when the project manager of the original project manager stepped away. So thank you, Anne, and I thank you for the successful completion of this project.
All right.
Great. Okay. With that, it's great to see all of you. I hope you have been well. As Sam said, we have recently just finished. I'm just trying to get my, bear with me for a second here. There we go. We've recently finished the study, and those of you who have been following along, we really produced 3 key documents, and I think those coincide with the times I've met with you. We started off in 2019 with a review of existing conditions and of the services in the area and the demand for transit services in the region, and produced in 2019 what we called the State of the Systems report. I believe I met with you about a year ago on that. I think we last saw each other in April when we came out with, I guess it's a little bit of a misnomer, we called it the final report, but that is the report that looked at governance and facility alternatives within the region. And now just finished the third key document, which is focused on service improvements in the area. So we realize that this report lands at a kind of awkward and challenging time. I don't think there's a transit agency in the United States that is running, has much cash at its disposal, challenging times for transit across the board. So what this report does, it's meant to be a living document, purposely designed to present a menu of potential service improvements. The consulting team went as far ahead as to identify the ones that we think are the highest priority, but again, it's set up to be a menu that as over the next year or two, as time goes on, you all may have different priorities, and as funding becomes available, different things could be implemented at different times. So just a very quick recap on the transit demand evaluations that we did about a year ago, which is the background into how we made our decisions. You'll recognize this map. This is an evaluation of demographics, socioeconomic data in the area to identify the parts of the region that can best support transit at various levels of demand. You'll see the Old Saybrook region pops out, as does Madison, New London, Middletown, and Meriden. No surprise there. We also looked at cell phone data. And this is anonymous data that is captured whether you're on a bike, in a car, walking, just where you're going to and from. The lines are connecting town to town, so they look a little awkward. They're center of town to center of town, but you can see on the left, that is all regional travel flows within the region from town to town, with thicker lines presenting stronger demand. The one on the right is regional travel flows from outside the region into the region. So definitely more activity coming into the Middletown area, but you can see from 95 west and east coming into the Old Saybrook area. This ridership is a little bit out of date at this point, but I think everything we do, we are basing on 2019 data, not 2020 for the obvious reasons. So that is good. And the key finding here, and no surprise to any of you, is that the 641 route is your strongest route in the system. Not far behind is the dial-a-ride service, which carries about 52 passengers a day, which puts it right up there in terms of, you know, stronger service that you operate. So over the course of the study, we did about 4 different efforts to try and capture some public input and ridership input. So that was, those findings are also wrapped into our recommendations. And in this 9-town area, what we heard from folks was by far and away the most frequent request we heard is for more frequent service. We heard that in particular for Route 641 along the shoreline, and also 644 that goes up to Middletown, but we heard it in general for all routes. There was a request for Sunday service, more Saturday service, just generally longer spans of service, starting earlier, going later, faster service, and any bus study ends up, we hear requests for more seating. So that's a no surprise on our part. So taking all that information, we have considered 4 different types of changes, and this is what I'm going to walk you through today. Changes to the network, the route realignment, and the idea of the concept of making a stronger hub, transit hub at Old Saybrook Station. We looked at potential new services, We looked at several packages of how service spans or service levels might be increased on existing routes. And we also looked at some capital improvements, more on a system and or system-wide changes. So the first one I'm going to walk you through are proposed route realignments. So you've got 5 routes operating in the area today. And so for each one, I've got a slide for each one. I'll talk about the specifics. But in general, the reason we looked at route realignments is that we did hear from riders, and we know just professionally that you attract more riders if your service is direct and fast. And riders reflected that in their comments to us. We had information on boardings by location at the beginning of this study. I didn't share that earlier, but we do have that information. And we looked at route segments that had relatively low ridership. And our thinking was if we could discontinue some of those segments and straighten out service, the service would become more attractive for more people. And perhaps those discontinued segments could be covered with expanded dial-a-ride and or ADA capacity. The key point that you'll hear a lot about over my presentation here today is that these route realignments form the basis of a what we think is our key recommendation, which is to create more of a hub or focal point at Old Saybrook train station. So that these realignments are largely necessary to facilitate that. And the cost of these is, when you look at them in isolation, you might actually save a little bit of money because you have less miles of service, less wear and tear on the vehicles, less gas. But because we are recommending that the discontinued segments be covered by expanded dial-a-ride capacity, we do assign a cost to that. It is $405,000 a year plus 2 additional vehicles. This is a very conservative estimate. We think that if, particularly if the merger were to move ahead and this service was delivered on a regional basis, that those costs would be much lower. So I'll just go through each of the routes very quickly here and then take some questions on these. The only 2 recommendations really for changes on the 641 are to pull into Clinton Station and have a turnaround to better serve the upgraded station and the new shelter there. So to pull onto, I guess it's Central Avenue, I believe, do a little loop and offer direct service there. And then you'll see this repeatedly as I go through each route. We are recommending, if you look over here to the Old Saybrook area, you can see each route, the 641, the 642, and the 643 all do deviations to serve destinations at Old Saybrook Center. We're proposing that a new route be introduced to cover those local destinations, and that will enable the 641 and other routes to operate much more directly into this new hub at the station. So you can see this again with 642. Today, 642 actually does these destinations in Old Saybrook Station as well. We're also, this Ivoryton deviation has relatively low ridership. We're recommending that be discontinued to make 642 a much more straightforward and direct route. And in general, in the transit profession, when you look at a route and you see a direct line on a map, that is a route that's, we feel, is really better serving customers. It is operating directly, and you're not inconveniencing 5 customers on the bus to go pick up 1 somewhere down a long deviation. Here's 643. This one I think has perhaps the most significant change. You can see today 643 going to New London goes down into Old Lyme and then back up through Flanders to 95. We are proposing again to set up the potential to create this hub at Old Saybrook Station. By realigning 643, we get the travel time down to 1 hour and operate mainly just along touching key exit interchanges in Flanders and other places along 95. That we would bring this route down to 1 hour service. That would allow it to meet every single bus in New London and then every single bus in Old Saybrook. So in terms of regional connections, this would be a very significant change. for some reason, there we go. 644, this is the route that goes up to Middletown, to the bus terminal in Middletown. Again, a fairly significant change here today from Chester. It gets off of Route 9 and then goes along the river on Route 154, all the way up into the Middletown passenger terminal. Again, it's very similar to 643. We see this as a key regional route, and we are proposing that it go to stay on Route 9 and offer much faster hourly service between Old Saybrook and Middletown. That's a significant improvement on travel time. There would be a segment of service here along the river that would no longer be served, and this is one of the key areas where dial-a-ride capacity could pick up some of that. Some of those riders, the relatively few riders that do get along 154. And since this is kind of right smack in the middle of the region, this is really one area where that regional delivery of dial-a-ride service would make a big difference in terms of efficiency and cost. And one last route, the 645 that connects Madison and Middletown, proposing really just one major change there. You can see, sorry, moving this around so you can see things. You can see today that this comes down by the Clinton outlets and comes along Route 1 into the gazebo, the same way 641 does. We are proposing that this 645 actually, after it serves the outlets, use 95 as a faster way to get to Madison. This would make the entire trip between Middletown and Madison faster. It would also make a very fast connection for people coming in from New Haven to get to the outlets in Clinton. They would have very direct service to the new development that's being developed across from the outlets and to the outlets themselves. 641 would still continue to make the local connections along Route 1. So any questions on route realignments before I move forward?
And I have a question. This is Leslie. With realignments, instead of dial-a-ride as having to pick up the slack, is it possible on any of these routes to run a local bus and an express bus? The express bus obviously would be the new routes, but the locals would enable people to pick up buses and get places without having to do a dial-a-ride. Is that an option?
I guess so. I mean, it's another bus on the road, so it's probably the same cost as the dial-a-ride, maybe more expensive. The reason we eliminated the segments we did is they were very low ridership. So we're talking about, you know, so if you have an express service and a very low ridership and a slower bus that goes and makes all these deviations, you can have very few people using that slower bus that runs all over the place, and it essentially becomes dial-a-ride. So I think we're maybe talking almost the same thing.
All right. It was just a thought. Thank you.
Good thought, though. Yep.
I have a quick question. When you propose these routes, especially the ones that you're saying the dial-a-ride is going to take over that segment, and you say it's low ridership, has there been a cost analysis study what the impact is going to be on that ridership cost-wise? Because dial-a-ride is more expensive than going on a regular bus route.
Right. So we looked at the cost of the realignments to all 5 routes, and if you look at just realigning those services to be faster and more direct and to not deviate, there would actually be a savings. But we're actually
I was talking not to us. I was talking about our clients, our customers.
would there be a higher cost to them because the dial-a-ride is
There will be. Of
higher
course there will
fare?
be. Has that been considered in your discussions in the realignments? That's all I'm asking. The impact on our customers.
No.
Okay.
No. I think we largely our approach has been to make improvements that work best for the largest segment of the population, and we strongly believe that offering faster, more direct routes will attract more riders to the routes themselves.
And I don't think that's not Joan's question. Joan's question is, if I may, Joan, to the rider who now has to take a dial-a ride, that rider is going to incur additional expense for his transportation. Is that correct?
Yes, because the fare is higher, yes. Yeah.
Right. So this may be a real concern to regular riders who are now given less choice.
And again, I would stick with my answer that in general, when in looking at transit improvements, we always try and make an improvement that's going to improve service for the largest amount of people and capture more riders, which we think the faster direct service would be. Yes, there would be an impact to some people who are no longer served by a deviation that comes to their doorstep. They're going to have to take dial-a-ride, and it would cost more. And I understand that is an impact. One of our recommendations is further study of what offering regional dial-a-ride service would look like and what the impacts and benefits of that would be. But I think, Joan, you are correct. If you now are on a route that deviates to pick you up at your doorstep and you now have to take dial-a-ride, there is an impact to you.
Okay, thank you.
We also had talked about, and I don't know if it made it in the final, as a possible extra mile zone in Old Lyme to replace the local service.
Yeah.
And I'll just point out that the Shoreline East service between Old Saybrook and New London is very limited. And so if you are trying to get to New London, or you're in New London trying to get to Old Saybrook into our system, your opportunities are not great on Shoreline East. And so the idea here was connecting the center in Old Saybrook to downtown New London better.
So let me get into a little bit of the new routes, because we'll cover some of this.
And before you get there, this is Charlie. I have a comment on Route 640, the new one that you proposed. I agree, going from the station down to Saybrook Point would be a good addition. I have a problem with adding the Maple Avenue route to it. I think you're going to have a minimal amount of new customers on that route going out to the Sound.
Mm-hmm.
And I strongly believe that route in the summertime it's so crowded with people, especially down at the Knollwood and Fenwood sections, walking across the road and other traffic. I think it's a dangerous route from the Cornfield intersection out to Saybrook Point. Especially, I don't know what you did to establish, how many new customers you would get there with that Maple Avenue addition, but I would suspect it's very, very minimal. And I say that because I've lived off and on down there for about 55 years, and I've seen what happens, especially in the summertime. So going back, I think the Maple Avenue addition would better be eliminated and just run the service from the train station out to Saybrook Point directly down Main Street.
Okay, yeah, I just want to, before I introduce the 640, I'll introduce it to everyone. It sounds like, Charlie, you've read up quite a bit on it. Are we done with the realignments? Anyone have any more questions on the realignments? We'll jump into new routes then. So the 640, as Charlie nicely explained, is again another key segment of or key factor in creating what we call more of a hub at Old Saybrook train station. So if you look at how the routes operate today, the 643, the 642, and the 641 all do double duty in Old Saybrook. They serve the senior center and the Stop and Shop and run through, kind of extend their routes. So by introducing a new route, 640, to cover those destinations and having instead all these routes just meet hourly at the same time at Old Saybrook Station, we can greatly improve the performance of those other routes. So we look to come up with kind of from scratch, as Charlie was alluding, what would a good route be in Old Saybrook Center that would serve those destinations, but also the residential areas down in the point where the density gets a little higher. And right now there's really no, as you can see today, no service. Old Saybrook, definitely the part of your region that has the highest demand for bus service. And those residential areas are really unserved today. So we came up with the alignment down Maple Avenue that loops back up through the point. And Charlie, to your concerns, this would be operated by one of the smaller buses, one of the cutaway buses, not a large bus. I've been down that way. I think, in the summertime, I think a bus can operate, that type of bus can operate safely. I'd be curious, thoughts. You guys know the region better than I. I would say in terms of the alignment of this route, this is the one we think serves the highest density areas and would get the best ridership. The key point here is that we would operate this service in conjunction with 642, and it would allow both of these routes and the other routes meeting in Old Saybrook to all meet hourly at Old Saybrook Station. The alignment of the actual route to the south of Old Saybrook Center could vary. It could be different. It could go it could avoid Maple Avenue, and if there was a place to turn around, could just go down to the point and the causeway that way. I don't think that would be a problem, but we felt that this was the way to really hit the largest, get the best bang for your buck. I don't know if anyone else has any comments on this route. It would also serve the industrial park, which we heard during the public comment session that people more interested in more direct service into the industrial park just north of the train station. So let me move on to the other new routes we looked at. We looked at the cost and a potential route for a seasonal shuttle, much like the one that's operated in Clinton. This one would start over, is that a Days Inn? I forget the hotel over by the river, serve the marinas.
Saybrook Point Inn.
Saybrook Point Inn, thank you. Connect the marinas to downtown restaurants and services, hardware stores and grocery stores. And then also connect Old Saybrook Point up to the center as well. We figured this route would operate much like the Clinton shuttle, Memorial Day to Labor Day, just Thursday to Sunday, 12 to 9 p.m. And that it would probably use a similar kind of vintage trolley type vehicle. And then the last thing we looked at, as Sam alluded to, is the possibility for introducing new extra mile routes. And we looked at where in the region might we do that. And we looked at both the Old Lyme area and through Essex and Deep River, in large part because those are areas where we are proposing to discontinue some segments. So again, getting at Joan's question with the dial-a-ride, that could be another way to pick up service in these areas. So those are the three new types of services we considered. Any questions or comments of following Charlie's comments on the 640 on any of these ideas? Oh. So we'll keep moving. We can come back to questions. Here's the impacts of these routes. We've costed out the cost, the capital cost for vehicles, as well as the operating cost to add an extra mile zone, to add the route 640, or to add the Old Saybrook shuttle. The 640 includes an additional vehicle, and it would have tremendous benefits to the 642 service going up into Essex and Deep River and Chester as well. It would make that service hourly and much more faster and direct. The cost for the Old Saybrook shuttle is relatively low in terms of operating costs because of the limited hours and months it would operate, but we did include the cost for a replica trolley, which is essentially a bus that's been retrofitted with some fancy siding.
And that would duplicate the shuttle would duplicate the 640 run from the station down to Saybrook Point then, would it not?
Yes, it would be very similar. Yep. So like I said, all of this is set up to be a menu. So, you know, pick and choose. So would the Old Saybrook shuttle be the preferred option to just run that type of service in the summer? Or would the 640 kind of a permanent service be the more desired option? That's the question.
Well, and the hours are different.
And the hours are different, of course. Yeah. The key with the 640 is it enables the setup of a potential new hub, which is something I'll get to here in a minute. I'll keep moving. So the changes to span and frequency, very much desired by riders in this area, because the frequency of service is unlike in Middletown, where it does operate every 50 minutes. In the Ninetown area, it's more 2 hours, hour and a half on many routes. So that was something we heard from riders loud and clear. So we looked at, in the table, you can see a number of different, what we call packages, or different ways you could expand the service span or frequency, and what the annual operating cost of each of those would be. So the first one we looked at was running the 641 and the 644, which we see as kind of key regional connectors, until 11 p.m. on all weekdays. We looked at operating all routes on Saturday. We looked at introducing Sunday service just on those two key routes, the 641 and the 644. We looked at increasing frequency on 4 different routes. And again, this makes the hourly pulse at Old Saybrook Station possible. You would need to add a vehicle in the afternoons to Route 641. The cost to increase frequency on 642 is wrapped into the cost of introducing the 640. There is no cost to increase the frequency on 643 if the route realignment is carried forward by keeping that service more direct between Old Saybrook and New London. It can operate hourly and meet all the buses in New London every hour on the hour. We also looked at adding a vehicle to 644 to make that operate hourly as well. So there are the costs for that, and there are vehicle costs associated with those as well.
And this is Susan Tyler. I assume that all of these costs are incremental increases over existing costs?
Exactly, yes. Good point, thank you.
Okay, and has DOT given you any reaction to this? We're looking at, you know, literally hundreds of thousands of dollars.
They have not given me any reaction. I don't know, Sam and Joe, you may have gotten a reaction.
No reaction, but we do feel that we do think it's going to be difficult for them at this point. They need to find a fix for their STF hole. But I don't know, Joe, if you have any other insight.
We were told early on when we started that I forget the exact amount. It was something like was it 10%, 7 or 8%? I think it was. Increase.
Oh, when Dennis, I think it was when he told us to aim for, it was I believe a 14%.
14, okay.
If I remember right, I think he came in at 14.
Yeah, it was a number like that.
Kind of random, but.
I think that was one of the options we had.
Yeah.
So they had said that was a reasonable target. Of course, it doesn't mean that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to pay for it, but I thought it was a reasonable plan to establish. And I also think you don't generally do everything in the study. You that's why it was done as a menu, so you can prioritize.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives us many years worth of, I think that's the next step as we go through. We figure out which ones we like, which ones we don't, and then prioritize the ones that we think are worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
And we start planning on how we implement them. That's how we've. I mean, we in 10 years we doubled our service, so it certainly is not unreasonable to think that we could get some of these things done. Not tomorrow,
So,
not in a year, but
So one, you know, like you could increase the frequency just on the 641 and the 644 and have them meet hourly at Old Saybrook Station. That would be without, you know, bringing all the other routes in there. That would be you can see 156 plus 153 plus the vehicles. I think that would be a tremendous change on the lower end of the spectrum. But let's go. There's a summary slide at the end. I've got just a couple more slides, and then we can just talk about priorities. This graphic I think is useful. It shows you in dark blue, this is the routes and how they pull into Old Saybrook today. You can see the hours, you know, 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9, 10. So you can see the routes come into Old Saybrook. They're scattered all around. Actually, when we were doing public involvement, I think we were there in the afternoon, and there was someone who would come in on the 641 and was trying to get to the 644. We talked to this man for quite a long time because he was there for 45 minutes waiting to make a transfer. So what we're proposing, if the frequency and the alignment changes are put into place and the 640 is introduced, is you could have every single route, except for the 645 that doesn't come to Old Saybrook Station. You could have every single route come in hourly, make a timed connection, much like happens in Middletown at the passenger terminal today. Routes would meet, you have an immediate transfer without waiting. So you have frequency, you have shorter overall trip times for people who have to transfer. Frequency and travel time are the two factors that have the biggest impact on ridership. This would be a tremendous enhancement to the convenience of your system, and we feel it would increase ridership really significantly. Yeah, it takes a number of, it takes the route realignments and it takes some new vehicles, but it certainly would change your system pretty radically to have every route meet every hour on the hour at Old Saybrook. Again, here, just a summary of cost for what is involved. Again, I've got the high cost for the route realignments and how much dial-a-ride and ADA capacity is needed. And following on Joan and Leslie's comments, I think, you know, further analysis of, you know, how that dial-a-ride would operate, whether it's just within the Ninetown region or regionally, would be useful. If there is a merger, there is spare capacity potentially in Middletown to bring that cost down on dial-a-ride. But these costs to increase the frequency and to buy new vehicles on the 640, the 641, and the 644 are pretty static. And then just one last set of improvements. These are kind of more system-wide or capital improvements. I've talked extensively about regional dial-a-ride. We did make a recommendation in the Middletown area that they completely move away from the flag swap system. They're a more densely developed area. We heard that more strongly from riders up there. We think in the Ninetown area, the only route for which that is really a priority at this point would be the 641. So to move the 641 completely to a bus stop based route would it enhances safety, and it makes the trip time more dependable, enhances safety. That is the key route in the system. We think that would make sense. We think there's opportunity to put more bus shelters at key points, connection points, Chester Park and Ride, Flanders, places where you want to highlight the availability of service, Clinton Center. And then if the Old Saybrook train station, you've got some pretty nice infrastructure there. The improvements that were done a couple of years back. We think if that truly was going to become an hourly pulse point, it's really going to be an important focal point of your system, that additional improvements could be made to enhance that. You know, better signage, more seating as obviously it became busier, and adding a restroom for drivers who are coming in every hour and going back out for an hour, and even maybe a little, there is a little building there that could be a supervisor's office and a quick place for a driver to use the restroom would make sense. So just to make clear, to go back to the menu concept, we everything that we suggest here, we think is, worth considering, right? These are all ideas that we thought were worth considering. So that's why we created the menu option. But here are what we think the priorities are in the shoreline area. And
Excuse
really,
me, Ann, excuse
Yep.
me. Can I remind everybody to mute, please, while Ann's speaking? Thank you.
I'm almost done. This is my last slide. And then I'll take everyone's question. We can go back to seeing each other. So really, with the exception of Sunday service, all these and the bus stop signage, we believe that these largely are the costs that are needed to set you guys up to have a really strong focal point for your service at Old Saybrook Station with higher frequency, timed connections. So that's really the focal point of our recommendations. Sunday service, definitely desired by riders. That was the second most indicated preference by riders. So that is also included on here. We think really at this point, if it was just on the 641 and 644, that provides pretty good regional coverage, and that would be sufficient. So that in a nutshell is the slate of potential service improvements. I'm happy to take questions. I also have a slide on what we recommended in Middletown if anyone is interested in that. But at this point, I'll stop sharing my screen so we can see each other.
And this is Peter. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, good. I hit the right button. Number one, I really am enthusiastic about your route 640. But my question involves the railroad. Years ago, we had found that we were competing on the new London route pretty directly with the train schedule. I assume you've looked into that, have you?
Yeah, so the one thing I'd say about trying to coordinate with train schedules is that, as a transit planner, people are always saying, oh, you should design the bus to meet the train. Well, the train schedule changes all the time by a minute here, a minute there, and that's really kind of a...
Shoreline East changes 3 or 4 times a year at least.
Yeah, they publish new schedules all the time.
All the time.
Almost quarterly, and it's very frustrating.
It makes it very difficult.
And the buses, they come in at 6:12, 6:42. It's very hard to match up. The other, but I think what you're alluding to, Charlie, is the other thing we find as transit planners is that having a bus system behind, working in parallel with the train system is a great, some people may prefer to take the train from Old Saybrook to New London, but the bus system provides, the train doesn't run at the same, times or maybe not as late. So the bus system provides a great kind of redundant or backup trip. It makes your trip that much more reliable to also have the bus operating there. And it provides the local circulation. If you were going somewhere between, if you're trying to get to Flanders, then you're taking the train from New York or Boston into Old Saybrook or New London, but how do you get to Flanders? Well, you need the bus system there. So we really think they work well in parallel, trying to match them up perfectly so that the bus meets every single train. As Joe and Sam said, you throw your hands up in a minute. every time you did a schedule, it just doesn't.
And with Shoreline East, the majority of their trains actually terminate in Old Saybrook. They don't go to New London. Only a handful a day actually go as far as New London.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which makes the bus system, it makes that Route 643 a really critical, great regional connection. Yeah, we really look at if 641, 643, and 644 can operate hourly and meet in Old Saybrook every hour on the hour, it would be every half hour on the half hour actually, but what a great spine to support the other bus routes and to just make regional connections and to supplement Shoreline East. Really sets up for a tremendous improvement. So as I said, and Sam and Joe have echoed, things change rapidly. We saw during the last economic downturn, a lot of money came towards transit through the ARA program. Will that happen again? I have no crystal ball. And we realize, particularly for you guys, what we're putting on the table with that old Saybrook hub is relatively expensive, but there are a few things that could be done to kind of start to get there little by little. So hence the menu option for you guys. Hopefully we intended to leave you with a useful document that you could refer to and kind of pick and choose and implement as time and funding allows as you guys move forward. And we wish you tremendous success with that, hopefully.
And just going back to what Anne had mentioned about federal spending, we did bring this up to our we invited our congressional delegation to come to our COG legislative meeting. We got some staffers, but there is a potential of infrastructure spending in the new Biden administration, and we want to make sure that our federal legislators know about our projects here. There has been additional federal spending on transit in the past with ARA back in 2009, and also with the CARES Act. So we're hopeful that maybe that could be a way of funding some improvements.
Thank you. Thanks, Sam. And thank you so much. Are there other questions for Anne before we let her go? Susan?
This is really a question for Joe. This is the now what question. Given the financial stresses at both the state and federal levels, we have this and the fact that we are working actively on a merger document for Middletown and the estuary. What is the process that we should use at this point to consider this document? What should we be doing with this at this point?
So that was actually something we were planning to talk about in the committee section. So we were thinking, yeah, okay. You want to? Well, I'll ask Leslie. Do you want to talk about it now, or you want to wait till committees?
Well, I might as well. So Anne hears it as well. Susan, when we get down on the agenda, we're going to be talking about our board of directors and committees to update everything. We will be creating a service study committee, and I've asked Charlie to chair, and we're looking for new members. This will give you all 45 minutes to figure out whether you want to join the service study committee. But this way, with Joe's input and our board, they can come up with what they feel are doable and what we want to do in the way of changes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions for Anne before we release her? And Anne, thank you very much for doing such great work on this. It's easy, even I get it.
Great. And can I just say, you guys have all been a pleasure to work with. I'm very much impressed by the knowledge base and dedication of this board in particular. I've worked with a lot of transit boards, and you guys are not only a pleasure to work with, but very impressive. So I have no doubt that you guys will proceed and good things will happen. So I wish you all luck and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too. You're welcome
Bye-bye.
to stay if you want, but we are going
I'm gonna head off. Yeah, thank you.
We're gonna push on and move on to item 5, which is visitors' comments. Are there any visitors that would like to say anything?
Well, I don't know if there was anything that I need to add regarding the COG legislative agenda.
Well, you're on the schedule.
Oh, okay. All right.
You are a committee report all by yourself.
Oh, okay. All right. Yay.
Okay, so not a visitor. Moving along, then we have moved the legislative committee report up to this point in the agenda because Joan has a conflict. So, Joan, legislative committee report, please.
Yeah, I sent to everybody after the election the list of the newly elected representatives and re-elected representatives and senators, and I will send it to our 2 new members and welcome both of you. I think you'll enjoy being on this board. The other thing is that we're going to, like we had done in the past, in January, schedule sessions with the newly elected representatives to ensure that they know what we're doing and what we're going on. And we also are going to be scheduling our legislative breakfast with our legislators as well as our first selectmen, but there'll be Zoom sessions, and I'll keep you up to date on it. And the other thing is, I think we'll have a legislative committee meeting in the near future in January after the holidays to follow up on what Sam had mentioned on the capital projects dealing with our specific legislators. Okay.
Susan,
Yes,
Peter, will you
Yeah.
put me on Charlie's committee?
oh, that's up to Leslie.
Yeah, we'll go into
Oh.
that later. We'll go into that later.
Okay, but
Thank-
I'm just volunteering because as you know, I'm leaving a little early.
No
Oh,
one will turn down a volunteer, Peter.
Consider yourself signed up in that case. Thanks, Peter. Any
I approve
questions?
I approve the nomination of Peter.
Thank you. Now we have two members on our committee. Any questions for Joan on legislative? No, thank you, Joan. That was a good report. And let us move on, please. Item 6 on the agenda is the secretary's report. Charlie, I don't know about you, but I haven't seen any of these minutes. Have you?
Yeah, the first one, the October 16th board meeting was in the package I received. The other two have not received anything on those two. So
I apologize. Unfortunately, Lisa's been out this week, so we are behind on minutes.
On
So
the
I'll have it in
October
the next meeting.
On the October 16th meeting, there's a couple of changes. Under roll call, Virginia is listed as the Old Lyme rep, and of course, she's Clinton. So it should be changed to reflect that. And on page 3, there's a reference under legislative committee to the legislator committee. It's legislative. Other than those two changes, I'm fine with the meeting minutes for October 16th.
Well, how come I didn't see them? In any case, we need a motion to accept
So moved with changes.
and and a second.
Second.
All right. So the amended, Charlie, you're looking to have the amended minutes accepted.
yes, we have a vote for acceptance of the October 16th board meeting with amendments. We need a
All in favor?
I made a motion.
motion, second. Second,
Angus,
Angus, any further discussion? None. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed.
I'll abstain.
Abstain?
yeah, Carl has to abstain.
Carla, one abstention. The motion passed with one abstention. The other two board meeting minutes, we don't have available. We can't act on them.
So you want to make a motion to table? Is that necessary? I think it is.
We'll accept the motion to table the minutes of the October 29th board meeting and the December 16th Finance Committee meeting.
Angus is making the motion. Who seconds?
Second,
Peter seconds.
Second,
Yeah, Peter.
Peter, any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion passed.
Okay, thank you. Charlie, do you have any communications for us? Any
I've
correspondence?
received no communications for discussion since the last meeting.
All right, then. Joe, you're putting this one up because we haven't looked at it yet? I thought,
We've sent it out to everybody, but it hasn't been on the record.
okay, for the record, did you all, you all received that letter? Copy of it? Okay, fine. Then we're done, Charlie. Thank you very much. Moving along, item 8, treasurer's report. Susan?
No report.
No report. That's a great one. We like that one. Item 9, committee reports. Finance committee. Susan?
There are a couple of items here that, Joe, you may be covering, so I may not want to deal with those, but we did discuss them. One is the COVID testing. Another is the donor-sponsored free tickets. Are you going to be covering those later, Joe?
I will, but I can cover them now.
Okay,
Depends on everyone's time. And then I guess we should cover them now, just in case people have to leave.
okay. Go ahead.
So we started using our CARES money to offer free transportation to COVID testing sites, because all the sites in our area are drive-through. So if you don't have a car, you can't utilize them. So we used our taxi program provider, which is Curtin Transportation, and they will pick someone up, wait with them, at the drive-through line, and then take them home. And then we will pay for that cost out of our CARES Act funds. So we've been advertising that on all our various methods. We sent it out to all the towns and all the first selectmen to disseminate through town hall to get it to everyone who needs to know about it. I don't know that I don't think we've had much use of it yet, but we wanted to get something we've gotten some calls on in the past, and we wanted to have something available. We don't expect it's going to be a big cost, because not that many people, I don't think in the end will end up using it, but it is critical to some people.
Joe, you're also running this through Middletown, correct?
Middletown's also doing the same thing, yeah.
Okay.
After they saw our program, they went up there too. It was a little easier for us because we already had that relationship with Curtin because of our taxi voucher program. So for us, it was very simple. It was just kind of a phone call to them and say, hey, could you do this? Is this something you would do? And they said, sure. So it was pretty easy. And then the other item was that we got contacted about 2 weeks ago, just through our website, an individual in the community who knew that we had just started fairs up again and was concerned that, particularly this year with so many people having lost hours and lost jobs, that it was going to be difficult for them to travel during the holidays. So they wanted to pay for people's transportation. So we worked with the individual to come up with a program that we're giving away 10 punch tickets. And as of this morning, we have about 45 people that have signed up so far, just in the past little less than a week. And we're doing that both paper tickets, and we've also given people the option to do a mobile ticket. So it introduces people to the mobile ticketing. A good number of people have done mobile. I had the numbers a few days ago, but we've gotten a lot more requests since. And many of those are requesting mobile tickets. This is their first mobile ticket ever. So it'll hopefully introduce them to that, and then maybe they'll use our mobile ticketing in the future. So, and what we did on that was we told the donor that we would charge the individual at the half fare rate, the senior disabled rate, which is $7.75, or maybe it's a little more. It's something in that range, instead of the full $15.75, so that it made it more affordable and stretched the money further. And so she said they could do they are willing to do up to 200 passes. And that's running through just the end of the month.
And that was an extremely generous offer from a concerned Good Samaritan in our district. The only other item for finance is that our audit, which is usually ready by now, has been delayed. We are waiting for federal guidance on how to account for CARES funding. So I assume that's affecting every district. And we did have a discussion about local town contributions for 21-22, which will be handled under new business because it requires a vote. And that is my report.
Joan?
Oh, I just would like to comment on our initiative for free rides to the testing sites. I've gotten really, I posted on my Facebook page, and our first selectwoman, Kathy Eno, thought it was actually a great initiative, and she has included it in her weekly emails that she sends out all the citizens. So I think it's really something very positive that we have been doing. I just wanted to comment on that.
Okay, anything else, Susan? Any
No,
other
that's it.
questions about the finance? All right, we need a motion to approve Susan's finance committee report. Joan, is there a second?
Second.
Angus, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Susan. Marketing, that's me, and I'll tell you, the two greatest things that I think Joe's been doing, I always take credit for everything he does because I'm the marketing person, are getting through to all the towns and making sure through their electronic newsletters or however they're disseminating information about our programs. And the COVID taxi thing is fabulous. The donation that this woman made that inspired us to use more CARES Act money in order to facilitate the free passes. It's all getting disseminated through the town's electronic emails, and I think giving us tremendous credibility in the community. What else did we do? Oh, look, COVID tech, the giveaway new, gee, there it is, over and over. Storm information. Yeah, I got an email saying that we wouldn't be open until noon. I'm hoping you all get that. All of our riders get that, so that they were informed that there was a statewide delay on transportation on Thursday. What else, Joe? What am I missing here?
Am I muted? No, good. I wanted to show make sure everyone saw, they should have seen it in your email. I'm trying to pull it up nicely. I got one of the emails here. Got somebody, sorry, I end up with so many windows open. Okay, so we saw our 645 marketing.
Right. I forgot about that.
So we came up with this little graphic here that we've used on social media. We did a social media campaign to promote our connection to Clinton Crossing, and we also used it for our newsletter. And this was the first thing of our marketing campaign. It's something we had wanted to start right before the pandemic. We had authorized doing a small marketing campaign, and then of course the pandemic hit, and it wasn't the time to be marketing. So now, as we're kind of hopefully nearing the end, we wanted to at least we started with this because this was kind of time sensitive, but we have some other campaign items coming up, just kind of more general marketing public transit and marketing our app for real-time information. So kind of do more of these type of professional looking graphics that we can use for our various media that we usually promote things in.
I think it's wonderful.
I have a question for Joe. Have you sent that to Clinton Crossing to have them get it out?
I don't have the latest people at Clinton Crossing.
Yeah, it keeps on changing.
It changes very, very frequently. I've had some people there that we worked with a lot, and then they were gone. We did try to contact them, but it took us about a month and a half just to get a contact for Black Friday on the transportation plan there, and they called us the night before. So it's been.
Carl, do you have a good
Still-
contact over there?
Yeah, it's still Nathan Ramos is still the lead, but responsiveness. If you shoot it to me, I can get it to him.
Okay, great.
That doesn't mean anything for responsiveness because they're slow to us too.
All right, Joe, under upcoming efforts, you got the general marketing campaign for all
Yeah,
services.
that's what we just discussed. Yeah.
Okay, so
And we used the same person that we used for our extra mile
Susan,
campaign and all those graphics, which we were really happy with.
yeah, she's terrific and very affordable.
Yeah, she's
very
really
glad you found
inexpensive,
her.
and she works for several transit districts. She does work for several transit districts, so she knows the market well. that we're trying to reach.
Good. All right. I don't think there's anything else under marketing. So, and you don't have to approve that one. So moving along, down to number 4, committee MOA, Susan.
Okay, I'm like to report on the activities we've been engaged in since our last meeting on October 29th. As all of you may remember, Estuary has a 3-person MOA negotiating committee, of which I am the chair. Other members are Angus and Joan. Middletown has its own negotiating MOA committee, also with 3 members on their side. We began meeting on November 18th, and since that time, each district has had its own meeting twice. We have met jointly twice. We have created a draft MOA with the assistance of our consultant, Dave Lee. I don't see Dave on today. I guess he's not joining us. And the important thing I think for everyone to know is that both districts are approaching this merger as a friendly merger, that we have not had any disagreements about what's important. We agreed early on that what was important to us would be similarly important to Middletown and vice versa. And what we have created at this point is a draft MOA that highlights a number of very high priority items for us. Included in that are 2 timeframe dates that are significant. We are angling and hoping for a signed MOA by all 3 parties, the DOT and the 2 districts, by March 1st of 21. And the actual merger we anticipate would occur on or about July 1st, 22. There will be some technical wind down issues that occur after that, but there would be a fairly long transition leading up to the actual merger. Our main concern for both districts is that during the transition period, which is from now until July 1st of 22, that we be provided the additional staff that were recommended in the study very early on in the process, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. The other significant thing that has happened is that last Friday, Laura Francis, who chairs the Middletown group, Joe and I met with Dennis Zielinski from DOT to describe what our process was, to ask how they wanted to handle it. He was surprised, I think, with how much progress we have made in such a short period of time. He agreed with the Peter. He agreed with the timelines that we set forth. He indicated that it would be likely that the commissioner would sign this MOA, and therefore the Attorney General would be involved in approval of its contents, and that, of course, will result in some extra time for review and approval. We made a very strong case for needing these additional 3 positions immediately. One is a maintenance manager whom Joe has recruited, interviewed for, and is about to offer a job to. We are waiting for a TOD for that position and expect that very soon. The other 2 are an HR payroll manager and a grants and procurements person, both of whom will lighten the burden on Helena and Joe to be able to continue to operate in their shared staff capacity between each of the districts. Right now, as you probably remember, Joe is spending 2 days a week at Middletown and 3 at Estuary, and Helena is spending 25% of her time on Middletown issues. We made it very clear to Dennis Zielinski that we cannot expect our staff to continue to do this without this additional staff support. He indicated at that point that he was amenable to that. We are looking for a written authorization to recruit and advertise right after January 1st with a hire date of March 1st, coincident and contingent on the signing of the MOA. We asked if DOT through Dennis had any specific elements it wanted included in the MOA. He seemed a little taken aback by that, said he hadn't really thought about it and would get back to us. And that there was considerable activity on the Middletown land acquisition and not much happening on the Westbrook site at this point. We told him that we hope to have district approval of the tentative MOA in early January. And to that point, you'll all note that I sent out a copy of the full draft, including the appendices that we have put together at this point. Our joint committee is meeting this afternoon to discuss that, but this document represents the latest agreements that we have come to. And while Middletown's board is a little bit different because there are only 4 people on that board, 3 of whom serve on that committee. So their board is fully informed all of the time because their chairman also sits in on our meetings. Our board is different. Of the 9 of us, we have 4 of us who are pretty fully informed, but the other 5 are not necessarily. And we wanted to provide an opportunity for everyone on the board to understand what we're doing, how we're doing it, what the process is as we move forward. And that's why I sent that information out. While I don't want to get into a line by line detailed discussion of each element, I'm interested in 2 things from the board today. One is an agreement from you on general principles that are outlined in there. And I'm looking for a consensus that will endorse this draft as it now stands. It will come back to the full board for approval prior to any signing that takes place. And it will be Leslie that signs this. So having said that, and I know a lot of material gets sent out to everybody, I'd like to entertain any comments, questions, or suggestions regarding the material I sent out. Happy to answer any questions you may have. If you haven't had a chance to read it and something pops up on your radar screen, please feel free to call me or contact me directly after the meeting. But that's a general overview of where we are. We're very close to having a draft that's ready to be sent to the department.
Leslie, this is Noel. Can I speak?
Sure.
Yeah, I am very, very impressed, Susan, and the work that you and others have done. We've come so far here in the last 2 months, and I can't thank you enough and commend you enough and the people working on this. And I would, for one, be ready to endorse this, but most importantly, a great, solid piece of work. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel.
Any other questions for Susan?
Susan, comment. One of the items you made note of is number 4, the land acquisition, and the latest date that is in there is December of 21. And if you have a timeline for finishing by end of July of 22, if that acquisition goes, toward the latter part of 21, you will have, I think, an impossible situation to try to get it completed by July.
That's a good comment, Charlie. The July 1st, 22 date is an operational merger. We do not anticipate that any of those facilities will be completed by that time. And we expect that included in the MOA is the development of a capital plan that will have completion dates in it. One of the things we will talk about at our joint meeting this afternoon is whether or not we should move the date for land acquisition up. Most of you know that the Middletown land acquisition process has been plagued by a number of problems. And while the DOT has reviewed our Westbrook site and doesn't see any problems with it, no other further studies, environmental and others, have been done on our sites. So the construction of the facility, the new facilities, and the renovation and rehab of the old facility in Middletown, or the current facility rather, we do not anticipate will be operational by July 1st of 22.
The original study had it at 2024 to open everything, and we're a little behind. So,
Joan?
I have a suggestion to make. Based upon our past history with conversations with Dennis Lensky and DOT, and lack of any written communication to us in terms of topics we have discussed, and I'm talking about over the years, I would suggest that particularly during this MOA process, and we've had our first phone call with Dennis, that perhaps it might not be a bad idea, because I've done it in the past, is sending an email, a follow-up email after each conversation, and saying, here's a summary of what we discussed and blah, 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 and the actions that we have taken. Please let us know if this is similar to your recollection of the call, and just establish a positive relationship going back and forth, but also protecting ourselves to make sure we have something in writing, even in the course of an email.
I think that's an excellent idea. I have written up a summary, and it would be very easy to put that into an email. I will talk to Laura about doing that. Yes, we do have a little bit of a jaded history on verbal communication. That writing things down would be helpful rather. Okay. Any other specific questions or concerns or suggestions about what you've received so far?
I have a question. An awful lot of this is predicated on monies coming from the DOT. So what happens if the DOT does not provide funding, or the timing is more drawn out? You haven't left any wiggle room for yourself. So the merger takes place, and then if the money comes when it comes. So what's either the operational plan or language in the MOU that's going to respond to the state's financial obligations?
Okay, that's also an excellent question, and on the top of the minds of everybody involved in this, which is there are so much additional funding committed to make this work. I think that one of the things that both joint committees will be discussing is what is our fallback position in the event that we do not get these types of funds to operationally and capitally. We are less concerned on the capital side and more concerned on the operational side, particularly given the status of DIF at the state level. There will be some time frame milestones beyond which we will not be able to proceed if the money hasn't been provided. We are going to be working on what those are at this point.
So are those milestones going to be included in the MOA?
I'm not sure. The MOA is basically a document of principle. It's not a logistical document. And one of the elements of that plan, or of the MOA, which we do not have yet, Joe is still working on, is a merger implementation plan. And I see that document as the one that addresses this particular issue. And because that will be an appendix in the MOA, it will be directly or indirectly assumed in that. And I think those are good questions that are still on the discussion table and agenda for us before anything is finalized.
So as an agreement in principles, why does the AG's office need to review this, since it's not binding at that point then?
It is binding because it does refer, for example, to all the capital funding and the capital plan for all of those 3 new facilities, plus pulse points for both Middletown Bus Terminal and Old Saybrook. And so there are elements to it that that would require that, but I think Dennis just felt that because this was such a major merger at the state level, that the AG would have to weigh in on it because there would be some commitment of funding, at least on the capital side.
And are those capital dollars under DOT's control, or do they involve OPM? Do we not know?
Yes. So some of it, if it's federal, it will come through the COG and DOT. If there's state bonding required, even if we get authorization from the General Assembly, you would need OPM to release the funds and bring it to the bonding commission. So yes, there has been discussions that I've had separately about how we may all have to be lobbying OPM to make sure that the bonding happens if we need to find money that route.
I mean, the governor will call the agenda for bond commission, but right. Does OPM need to be a party to the MOA since they're a key funder?
They shouldn't be though, because should be within their regular capital program. Right? None of this is outside the normal. It's just and DOT decides how that's to buy it up, because it is most of the state money is going to be a match to federal money.
We have raised that, Carl, with DOT as to what role, if any, OPM is going to play, and they have said they are not a necessary party.
That's definitely not on the capital side. They did say on OPM watches them more on the operating side. Like I said, the capital program is the capital program. They get so much federal money every year, and then they match that federal money. The Middletown property is being bought with state money, all state money. And I'm betting that they will probably do the same for the shoreline property. But then after that, everything else should have federal money and just be part of the normal plan. And if we get it designed up fast enough, it may be eligible if there is an infrastructure program for any federal program that may come out. So I know they're starting to, DOT starting to look at that for projects might be eligible for a infrastructure program.
Any other questions for Susan? Great report. And as Susan mentioned, they are meeting at 1 o'clock this afternoon. So you might just get another update soon. Who knows?
Can I just assume that there is a general consensus in agreement and endorsement of the general direction we're going, knowing that additional questions still need to be answered and additional feedback will occur to the board members? Would you like a motion for a consensus? What are you looking for? Just a general consensus. In other words, if someone is in disagreement, let me know now. All right, so if you'll raise your hand if you are in agreement from a consensus standpoint that MOA committee is working in the direction that you want, hands up. If you're not
I'm not
happy
on
with
video. This is Noel, but I certainly have strongly support what's been
Great,
said.
Noel's hand is up. Thank you. Anybody with a hand down? Anybody with one of these? No? Susan, you got endorsement here by consensus. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For a tremendous amount of work. I don't know if you all realize, but it's become a full-time job for Susan, which is fabulous. Joan, are you signing off? Can't hear you.
Bye, everybody. Great meeting. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you,
Bye,
Joan.
Joan.
Happy New Year. See you next year.
Yes, exactly.
I have to
Okay.
leave in a couple minutes myself, so.
Well, you're next.
Oh, good.
So you can leave after you speak if you like.
All right.
Leslie,
Yes,
I
sir.
left and I came back.
Yeah, we missed you. What was the face thing for? What's going on here, Peter?
Oh, God. I have a very peculiar person here cohabiting, and it's not my cat. And that's what she was doing to me, and I forgot you could see me. Anyhow,
Yeah,
the
we
doctor's
see
got
you.
a patient, so I'm out until 12.
I see. Okay, we see you. Okay, so, Sam, can you give us a COG update?
I don't have too much more to update from what has already been reported about from the legislative committee. Just we do need to make a concerted effort to get the MOU, get the recommendations of the study into the hands of our legislators, both federal and state, because they're going to be key in our implementation. And I'm hoping that with Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro's new chairmanship of the Appropriations Committee, that will pay off for Connecticut. And she does represent Middletown, so we are in her district. So Estuary is already providing service to Middletown. So we need to. Yeah, I don't think she's just looking at her district. I think she will support Connecticut in general, but that helps. So I just want to make sure that your legislative committee is reaching out to them, to Rosa DeLauro, Courtney, Joe Courtney, even John Larson. He represents the very northern part of Middlesex County, Cromwell. So.
Well, Joan's been really excellent in reaching out to everybody. Actually, she sent a master list at one point, so we'd all know who the reps and senators are, but
Great.
she's on it. She's terrific.
Leslie, I have a question for Sam.
Sure.
You mentioned having the MOU. I think you meant the MOA.
MOA, yeah.
The merger MOA being shared with legislators. What's your strategy there? And how should we?
You don't actually have to share the document, although once you have it, I think it will be a public document. I think the MOA will articulate exactly the capital and operational investments that are needed to pull this off. And I think we can use that as a document to inform our legislators about this is what we need to get this done. But I also want to make the argument, the larger statewide argument, that a friendly merger like this is a really good example for other parts of the state. And if we can do it, we can be an example, particularly to Southwestern Connecticut, which from a transit perspective is a balkanized mess. I think we can be a statewide example, and that makes this relevant to legislators in other parts of the state to support this.
Okay, so we'll work with you on what seems to be the most efficacious approach to the legislative people on the MOA.
Yeah, and yeah.
Leslie, this
Yes.
is Noel. I'd like to make a comment. I don't know whether this will affect your quorum. I have to leave also at 12 o'clock, and I know you're going to be going into discussions about contract negotiation and other things, but I just want to signal you if you want to move that up, but I have to leave at 12 o'clock. But I don't want to do this and have you lose a quorum is my point.
Yeah, we will lose the quorum. I think we put the contract negotiations in just to cover our butts here, but I don't believe we are actually going to go into executive session today. So I think we're good. No,
But I have nothing else to add. So happy holidays.
How about committees? Do you want to move up committees so we get
Well,
that done before we lose people?
we're almost done.
And the town dues. Well, but maybe we should do our new business items and then do
All right, well,
reports.
first of all, Sam, thank you very much. I
Thank you.
assume we're all set, and thank you for the update. Executive director can wait, I guess, Joe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
All
I'd
right.
wait on our reports and let's get our
All right.
new
let's
business items
move-
done.
Let's move the items 10, 11, and 12. We've already done that, blah, 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 blah. Let's just move new business up at this point. Is there a motion to move new business up in the agenda?
So moved.
Susan, second.
Second.
Angus is a second. Okay, all in favor, fine, aye. New business, item 14 on your agenda is item number 1, town dues for upcoming 2022 fiscal year. You should all see in front of you the proposed changes to the town dues. You also should have gotten a copy of it in your packet. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Susan? The
You want
talk
to,
about the finance committee?
yeah.
The Finance Committee discussed this and felt that it was important, given the environment, to stay with a 2% increase, which we have done for the last 2 years as well. The dollar amounts are small and manageable, and that was our rationale, and what the Finance Committee has recommended to the full board, that it adopt a 2% increase for 21-22.
Leslie?
Yes.
I'd like to move that recommendation we go to finance for the 2% dues increase.
All right, somebody's got to mute. I don't know who it is, but somebody's got to mute.
Second Noel's motion and Leslie's comments.
Okay, so Noel is the first, Angus is the second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the town dues 2% increase?
Aye.
Just
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so the town dues increase has passed. Thank you for that. The 2021 meeting schedule, I don't think there's any question about that. It's the same every other month, meeting at 9:30, except December, so we can have this fun party. Not, but next year we will. Next year we will. Any
Need a
questions?
motion to accept?
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye, aye, aye.
Aye.
Very good. Opposed? Abstain? Doesn't matter. Okay, so the schedule's been approved. Committee appointments. I went through the last time that we'd gotten our board of directors and committee stuff, and it was a mess. And to make it brief, let me just tell you, and Joe will be handing this out later because I redid the spreadsheet. But we have about 8 or 9 standing committees at this point. You should know who you are, but finance, oh, there we go. Finance, you've got Joan, Susan is the chair, Charlie, Peter, and Carl. Any questions on finance? No. Good. Marketing is me. Nominating committee, you have Charlie, Peter, and Angus will chair. And that's a very important committee because you guys have to come up with a slate of officers to be voted on at the February meeting. Now, you don't have to meet. Theoretically, anybody can make nominations from the floor. So Angus, however you want to handle that committee is just fine.
We already had a little bit of conversation and discussion. We'd be happy to move things
There you
along.
go. There you go. Angus is going to appoint himself to be the new chair. Please. Under personnel, we have 2 people on this committee, Susan, and the chair will be Noel, or is Noel, excuse me. Transit advisory, that was Mr. Forbes. We have nobody on there. We need 1 member to volunteer. And as you look underneath the transit advisory, you've got 2, 4, 6 names there. That's the public. Those are the public people that have last served on the transit advisory committee. If they're not willing to serve, Joe will come up with some new people, I'm sure. But that position from our board is open, and you don't have to volunteer right this second, but if you're willing to do it, please let me know as soon as possible. Legislative chair is Joan, and Angus, you are also sitting on that committee. The MOA committee chair is Susan. Joan is on the committee and Angus is on the committee. And I've been sitting in on pretty much all their meetings in an ex officio capacity. So I'm the 4th board member that sort of knows what's going on a regular basis. And then we're going to add another committee onto this, which is called the Service Study Committee. And as I mentioned earlier, Charlie has offered to chair this, and Peter jumped in. Thank you, Peter, to serve on it. We would like a third member. And I'll point out to Carl and to Tim that one of your obligations as a board member is to serve on at least one committee. So I'm hoping one of you will jump in and volunteer to be on the service study committee. And if you don't want to do it right this second, that's fine, but please let me know as soon as possible.
You want
Are
to
there
mention the
any-
other area, we need somebody as legislative because Virginia was on legislative.
Did I miss that one?
You
Excuse
went through
me.
the committee. We just didn't say that we're looking for somebody new
Oh,
on it.
yeah, sorry, we are. We're looking for someone for legislative and someone for service and someone for transit advisory. I think the others were all okay, Joe? Personnel was just two, correct?
Yeah, it doesn't meet that often, so that's okay.
Yeah.
But
Leslie,
legislative does.
Yes, sir. Charlie?
where is the connection, or whom do we have to coordinate with on this service study? With Ann?
No, your focal point will be Joe.
Okay,
If Joe needs Ann, he will get hold of her and bring her on board. But right now, it's Joe. So
Okay.
your committee will be 3 members plus Joe.
right, okay, thank you.
All right, so in an effort to move along so that we don't lose everybody in the next 20 minutes, I'm not going to ask you to commit now, but to please let me know at your earliest convenience, hopefully by the end of business today, so we can send out the new board of directors and committee information. And also so that you can double check that your information for phone number, email, et cetera, is all updated and correct.
Should
Any
we
other,
have a motion to at least officially create the new committee?
do we need a motion? I thought that was kind of ad hoc,
We usually do.
but this is an ad hoc committee.
Yeah, even for any committee, we've always done a motion and
Fine. May I have a motion, please, to create the service study committee?
So moved.
I'll make,
That's fine. Everybody
And-
wants it.
you want to say in the motion that Charlie is chair?
Sure.
So
And
moved.
it's fine, Charlie.
thank
Now
you,
he's stuck.
Peter.
Now he's stuck in it. It's
Now he's stuck,
on
Joe.
the record.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, all in favor? Aye, good. Thank you very much. Moving along to the resolution of appreciation. Charlie, you have a resolution to read, please?
Yes, the resolution dated December 18th, 2020, recognition of Virginia Zavoy Board Member, Estuary Transit District, certification. I, Charles Norris, Secretary of the Estuary Transit District, do hereby certify that the following is a true and correct copy of the resolution adopted at its meeting on December 18, 2020, in which a quorum was present and acting throughout, and that the resolution has not been modified, rescinded, or revoked, and is at present in full force and effect. Whereas Virginia Zavoy has served on the Estuary Transit District Board of Directors since its founding in March 1980, as a representative for the town of Clinton, and whereas she has served as the board secretary for the Estuary Transit District for the majority of that time, and whereas she has served on nearly every board committee since its inception, and whereas she has been an invaluable contributor to the board, all areas of transit concern. Now therefore be it resolved that the Estuary Transit District acknowledges and accepts her resignation as a board member and officer, and further wholeheartedly thanks her for her many years of outstanding contributions and service. Signed, Estuary Transit District Secretary, that's myself, and I will sign that. And Leslie, who keeps this for record keeping.
Thank you, Charlie. I think we need to vote on this
Yep.
resolution.
So
So,
moved.
thank you. Is there a second?
Second,
Okay, Peter and Charlie, further discussion. I will just point out that this, the reason we're doing this resolution of appreciation is because we do appreciate Virginia so much and we want her to see this. as soon as possible. In addition, we are planning to do a plaque, a recognition of her many years of service, and to put that at the new Clinton bus stop at the train station, I believe. Joe, is that the right place?
That's our plan, assuming they put it up. Otherwise, we'll do the CVS one.
Right. So, and this is because Virginia's just been fabulous since the board actually started. That's all. So Charlie, we need to vote? Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Charlie. All right.
And
Leslie-
Charlie, you can send it to us, Charlie.
Leslie, I've got 5 minutes.
Okay. Chair comments. I have nothing. Go figure. Board member comments. I have nothing. Okay, so, and we're not going into executive session today, so we can move back now very, very quickly to our committee reports. I'm sorry, executive director's report. Joe?
Yeah, I'll go fast. We got our second allocation of CARES Act money. It's $1.6 million, 960,000, which is for extra mile. The rest is for other purposes. We'll be applying for that hopefully next week. Our mobile ticketing, I just got to change that one. I'll say that it's been going since our fairs started again. 38 individuals have bought 68 passes that they've used over 600 times since fair started again November 1st. So it's taken off pretty well already. Expanded extra mile service because of the new funding we received. And that, we've been needing to do that to reduce our wait time so it can continue to grow. And we got our submission of the National Transit Database done, which is a big report we have to submit every year. So that has been completed. And that's all I have on this report. And we'll talk a little on COVID stuff a little later on.
Wonderful. I do believe we have to accept your report. Is there a motion?
So moved. Noel.
Second,
Charlie, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Joe. Moving to finance manager's report, Helena.
Mute. Okay. Joe, can you please put the report? I just want to say real quick, our cash flow report, as you will see when Joe point on the screen, it's pretty strong. We went in detail with the finance committee, like always. So I don't see no concern. Found Joe.
No.
So we also
well, we'll start with budget versus actual. I had that first.
Okay, budget versus actual. Okay, budget versus actual. I have no concern. It's only from one third of the year. Yes, from July 1st to October 30. As you can see on the screen, that we read the budget, so there's also no concern. The only thing I want to say that we received TOD from DOT about extra mile, and we got paid 61,000. I think there's a little further. So we got paid for 2019 and a portion of 2020 fiscal year. And the rest of it we draw from the CARE Act. So we all set with extra mile. And I also bill already DOT. I have not received money, but as long as we have TOD, there's no concern. Okay. There's question?
No? Okay, go on.
And our cash flows, you can look at it. Like I said, I don't see no concern on our cash flow. So we going strong. We have good general funds. So there's no problem to pay our bills. Okay.
All right, any questions? All right, Helena, you all set?
Yes, thank
All right,
you.
in that case, motion to accept finance manager's report.
so made.
Charlie, a second, please. Hello. Hello, we need a second. All right, thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Aye, good, fine, thank you. Thank you, Helena.
Thank you.
Margaret, it's time for the operation manager's report.
I'm here.
Hi.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
All right, so I will begin with what our numbers look like. With COVID numbers going up, we did take a big hit in the month of November with ridership going down significantly due to, less ridership, less dollar ride, even extra miles suffered a little bit, not by much, but we did have to, limit riders, and a lot of people did do a good job opting to stay home instead of traveling. We're still working very hard to make sure the buses are cleaned every day, making sure the drivers are wearing masks, making sure we're doing all the protective measures possible. I can happily say that we are fully staffed. We have 16 full-time drivers now. We have 8 part-time drivers, so everything's covered. We have people to cover call-out, vacations, you name it. We're covered in every way possible. I can happily say yesterday, everybody came together, built a good working team to get all the snow off the buses and get us running on time for our 12 o'clock start time. We were very fortunate to have CT RAP provide a customer service training that the majority of our drivers took, and we got a lot of positive feedback, a lot of, self-reflection where people are looking at, this is what our customers need for us to provide to them. This is how we're going to do it to meet that customer service satisfaction.
I just want to mention it was all virtual, which is our.
Oh, it was all.
We've never done a live virtual training, and we weren't
95%
sure how it will be received, but it was. They enjoyed it.
95% virtual, and we had some people in the classroom, but like I said, we practiced social distancing even there at that point. But the virtual, we got a lot of good feedback as far as the way the classes were set up and the way the instructor provided the lessons for the drivers. We have another training coming up in January for the dispatchers as well. So that's something that's pending in the future. Recently, we've gotten several phone calls from riders with very positive feedback about how much they appreciate our service. So we're definitely doing all the right things to meet our customers' needs. Joe already told you about the holiday giveaway. We're getting high numbers every day, and people do appreciate what we're providing. We're working on just, providing updates, and with all our new hires, making sure everybody's on the same page and providing the same service that we expect and that I expect from them. So I think everything's going smoothly. This holiday season is wrapping up or coming together very well. And that's my report. Hopefully I didn't go too fast. I'm sorry if I did.
Margaret, I don't understand something. What are paddles for drivers?
It's just the information they have as far as how they get to locations. So on the paddle, it gives them the timestamps of each stop. It gives them what passes we accept. It tells them about token transfer. So anything that's new that we're providing for drivers, it's all there for them. So if they forgot how the transit token should look when they accept it from a customer, that information there. So it's really all information that they need before they go out on the road, so they know exactly the information they need. If not, they always have dispatch to fall back on if they don't know something.
We have like cheat sheets on how to use the mobile data terminals, the radios, the destination signs. There's a lot of equipment in the bus, and then directions and all sorts of things.
All right, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Any questions for Margaret? Motion to approve the operation manager's report.
So moved.
Second. All right, Susan and Charlie. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Thank you, Margaret. Sorry you had to wait all day to give it. Okay, now we're moving on to old business. The COVID-19 update. Joe, that's going to be you, isn't it?
Yes. So we are testing out some options for passenger barriers on the dial ride, particularly because it tends to be people who are more at risk. So we're trying 2 different types of barriers. We just got them in. So we're going to see the feedback we get on those. I mentioned the testing. And then we've also been kind of talking with Sam, and we're trying to see if there's any other unmet needs out there especially the second round of CARES money, just so we know if there's anything else towns need our assistance with in meeting transportation needs, because still a lot of other providers are not back to work yet. So we just wanted to make sure we're meeting the needs of our community. And then the next item on old business was the Extra Mile Fair. We discussed it last time. And what I've found out since is that we can make it the same exact pass as our fixed route. So if everyone's agreeable, we can do that. We just now have to start thinking about what a timeline is. We probably don't want to start the fair right now with the pandemic getting worse again. And with us just putting out that additional vehicle on Extra Mile to reduce the wait times, we probably want to give at least, maybe we bring it back to the next meeting and start to consider a timeline then for implementing fares, if everyone's okay with that.
So if I understand, you want to implement more Extra Mile availability, but
that's done. This is the fair. We've never set a fare on it.
right. So
We've
we're
been doing
saying
it for
no
free.
fare.
Right.
Yeah, you're saying no fare. Let's discuss it in February, which sounds like a fair thing to do, pun intended. But can you just be a little clearer on where Extra Mile is now running? Because I'm just curious.
Well, the service area hasn't changed. It's just the number of vehicles. So we only had one vehicle most of the day. And as it got more popular, we were getting wait times. They could be as high as 45 minutes. And our goal has been to be an average wait time of less than about 10. Our average, our median was up over 15. So we needed to add additional service on to cut that wait time down.
Okay, but
So
so
it's just to
service,
improve the service. It was getting to a point where, yeah, I mean, so we want to make sure we didn't lose, we want to try and bring more people back. We had wanted to try and get a good kind of base of people using Extra Mile before we implemented the fair. And then, of course, the pandemic's not helping anything either. So.
okay, but there hasn't been any discussion or need to discuss increasing the service area?
It would be very hard. The service area seems to be pretty good. If you grow it, you have to add even more vehicles. I mean, the service area works in terms of how, where an area that we can actually serve in a reasonable time. If we increased it, it would probably be, as you saw quickly on the study slides, how there were new zones. We'd probably be increasing the number of, making new zones, not necessarily growing the existing zone, because then it gets too big and you've got to, if you're trying to have an average wait time of 10 minutes and yet it takes you 20 minutes to get across your entire zone, it's going to be very hard to achieve those wait times. So, there's certainly opportunity for new zones, but I think this zone is good as it is.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
So
About
what, just to sum up, Leslie, then what we're looking at is a fare for Extra Mile, which will be the first time we've imposed a fare that is consistent with our other fares, and that we would bring something to the board at the February meeting?
Yeah,
Right,
we
I
could
think
bring a
that,
formal
yeah.
proposal. I mean, we'll see how things look. If the winters is, worse, hopefully not worse than now, but it could be. We might want to delay it even further.
The no fare?
Yeah, a lot's going to depend on what's happening with the pandemic.
Sure.
It's not a great time to start introduce a new fare, but we'll be ready now that I know technologically what we can do, and that we can link it to the existing pass, and they could just pull up an existing pass. Because 60% of the people that use Extra Mile use our other services, right? So that's why I really want to have something that works together, and it's not like its own program that you have to go buy a separate fare. We're trying to make sure this is something that is gonna, it's integrated together and it works together.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions about that for Joe on COVID or Extra Mile?
Joe, so there's no fare now on Extra Mile, is that correct?
That's correct. We've never had a fare on Extra Mile.
Okay,
So
thank you.
even when we reintroduced a fare for everything else, since we never had a fare on Extra Mile, we did not.
our successful pilot. Yeah, have we gotten any money for that yet? I'm just curious.
Yes, a lot. Remember,
Well,
we
no,
drew a lot
the
of
new
money.
money, the
We drew
new
up
money,
the,
we-
which one?
the 55K. Have we gotten that?
So as Helena said, we have the TOD. We
Yeah.
just have to get now we're waiting on the payment.
Yeah. And what year? Never mind. Any other old business that's not listed on the agenda? Is anybody seeing anything? No? Okay. In that case, I think even with all the skipping around, that we are pretty much done. Our next meeting will be February 19th via Zoom at 9:30. And I would like a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second.
Second,
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we are adjourned at exactly noon, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you next year.